Sean, thank you so much for bringing me to your favourite bar, O'Donoghue's Merrion Row.
Hi, Gary. How are things? I hope you're keeping well.
I am doing really well. I have to honestly say, you gave me three favourite bars. Now, on the basis that we can't go on a pub crawl today, because we're not really in this bar, just in case.
But I am later. I'll be in there about 2 hours from now.
Well, that's just wrong. You're not meant to say things like that. You're meant to pretend that we're still not allowed into the pubs. Okay. Why is it your favourite?
Well, I suppose, you know, I come from Bray and I've lived in Bray all my life. And, you know, you have great bars in Bray, but, you know, coming from Wicklow and going into Dublin City and going for a drink was a totally different experience. And getting home was a totally different experience because you couldn't get home. You only got to Shankill for £50 at the time. And then your man threw you out on the side of the road. So I suppose when I started going to Donoghue's, I was probably how would I say, a bit older in life and really appreciated what an Irish pub was. And you know, when you look at O'Donoghue's, like it was a grocery in the 1700s.
Wow.
And then in the 1930s, I think a family member, I remember asking Oliver Turndomer, they bought it in so it wasn't them, but the O'Donoghue's family bought it in the 1930s and set up as a bar, right? And when you go into O'Donoghue's, like, you know, that you have Carol and I think it's Kevin there as well as kids. Great friendly bar. But what I really like about O'Donoghue's is, you know, forget about the traditional music and, you know, the great Dubliners, Luke and, you know, Ronnie Drew and Phil Linna played there, Christy Moore played there. And you probably remember seeing all them, Gary, because I'm a bit younger than you, right?
I heard them on the old gramophones when you wound them up. Go on.
But when you go into O'Donoghue's, let's say you're bringing friends or you're even bringing guys from the UK or around the country or from the US, like it's just a great bar. It's so friendly. Everyone loves the atmosphere. You always, you know, about 9 o'clock, a bit of DVI comes on, and you know you can stop talking to the American or stop talking to the guy from the UK and just drink a pint and listen to the music. So it has a bit of everything. But I think when you go into O'Donoghue's, it's just like a black hole. You never come out of it, so it's fantastic. And I suppose, you know, one of the things I find fascinating about it is, like, you know, you can walk in one door and you can come out another 3 or 4 doors, and it's just like a maze inside.
Do you know, I only learned 2-3 years ago a thing called the Irish exit. Do you know what it is?
I've been involved in it once or twice.
I actually didn't know what an Irish exit was until I went to the United States. And knowing some of the cheap states I know, they'd be doing Irish exits when it's their round. That's what I'd be worried about.
Well, I always find you buy the first round. At least remember you people buying the first round. You never remember the fella that bought the last round. but I can remember now a good friend of ours, and we used to do a lovely section on it first Friday of every. And we're trying to bring back first Friday of every December, because we'd be all out with, you know, lunches and clients for all December. So a good few of us that are all friends within business would meet there about 3 o'clock. We'd have 3 or 4 drinks. We used to go to Unicorn, which is now closed, have a bite to eat, and we'd come back for, you know, 1 or 2. We wouldn't have any more than that, of course, right? So we'd have the 1 or 2 drinks, and there's a famous one there. There's a famous individual. I won't mention his name, but he picked up, he did Tesco bag with him. We don't know what was in it. It could have been cash. To this day, we never asked him.
Okay.
And he was 6'6", and he walked through the front door. But as he walked out, I think he took both sides of the door off him, and they had to replace the door the next day. So, you know, and he didn't say goodbye either. So he just turned on it and he was gone.
Oh, that's the truth. That's the truth. With plenty of entrances and exits.
Exactly. And you know what? I suppose when you look at the great pubs in Dublin, you have Keogh's, you have Grogan's, you have the Old Head, you have the Long Hall, you have O'Brien's and Leeson Street, right? And then you have O'Donoghue's.
Yeah.
And they all do a great pint of Guinness. And the only reason they all do a great pint of Guinness, a good friend of mine is a barman, played golf with him down in Drew's Glen. He tells me none of them serve food. So if you want a good pint of Guinness, never go to a pub that serves food.
Food. That's interesting, because one of the observations I had, and maybe this is an old photo, I can't see any big televisions either.
They have a little television. It'd be straight in front of you on the right. That's the only TV they have.
And it's an interesting thing, isn't it, that there seems to be a move now to have certain parts of bars with TVs and a lot of areas without TVs.
Yeah.
and you know, it's good. I love sport and you love sport. We all love sport. But sometimes it's just nice when there isn't something distracting you.
I think so. You can have a chat. That's what we love, having the chat.
You can just have the chat in the long haul. My God, you brought me back. So listen, a favorite quote. So we're up there at that bar, and Mr. Doonahue comes up, gives us our beer, and I say to you, so you must have a great quote. Give us a quote there, Sean.
Well, I suppose live every day like it's your last, because one day it will be. And you know, it's Robert De Niro. That's where I first heard the quote.
A great poet himself.
Yeah, he's a great. Yeah. He makes the odd film as well. So what I say, like, the reason I love that quote, and I tried to find where the quote originated, but it wasn't actually Robert De Niro. It was Ray Charles, the jazz singer. So that's the first time the quote comes up, and so I couldn't actually find where Robert De Niro, but I have it in my head. I remember some clip of it. It wasn't a film, some interview he did, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? What does that quote mean to me? It doesn't mean go crazy and be mad every day. What it means is, like, take the opportunities in life that come to you, you know? So yeah. I suppose when I look at it, you know, when a friend rings you and asks you to go for a pint, and I remember when, you know, you're in your 20s, no, you'd say no, or you'd be too busy. But when a friend rings you to go for a pint, there's a reason behind that.
Yeah.
If they ring you out of the blue, there's a story to be told, or they need you for something. So I learned that lesson later in life. When a friend reaches out to go for a drink, go for that drink, and don't make any excuse, because you're going to find out something that's really important that you need to help them with, or they can help you with. So I think grabbing them opportunities, and then, you know, I just think it's important. Like, people seem to forget how important it is when friends reach out for a drink. And
I think more than ever, after the last 24 months, you know, let's not forget what we missed most.
Yeah, friends.
What people miss most was actually just physical
contact
to other people.
Exactly, and, and you know, there's only so many walks you can do with your friends.
This stuff on.
And we've been on one recently.
Yeah, no, but even that was wonderful in its own right. So
absolutely, that was.
Tell us something. Tell us something that not very many people know about, Sean.
Ooh, well, yeah, there's a lot of things that people don't know about.
This is a daytime show, right? So
exactly. So, you know, I mean, I suppose, you know, I thought about this one hard, and I spoke to Caroline, and I said, you know, I'm a very private person, and you know, I am a very private person. You know, I'm out there, I'm in Dublin. A lot of people that know me well, like yourself, Garry, I work hard, I play hard, but I would be very private. And I suppose 15 years ago, something major happened in my life, and I ended up looking after 3 kids as a single parent. And I still had to continue the 60 to 70 hours a week that I had to do. I still had to, you know, drive a business, drive it hard. But I had the responsibility as a single parent to look after 3 kids.
My goodness.
And and you know, and looking back now, it's one of the things that I'm most proud of in my life. And you know, if you asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have sealed up. I wouldn't even spoken to you about it. You wouldn't even known anything was different in my life.
Yeah.
And I suppose, you know, what COVID's really allowed me to see over the last 2 years, because I've spent a tremendous amount of time with my daughter and my son, and you know, I have 2 sons and a daughter, and what I've seen, there's my Chloe and my son Sam are still living in the house, and what I see is what wonderful job I've done, if I do say so myself, that I look at my kids and say, you know what, you might have worked hard, you mightn't have been there all the time, but you ended up being a good dad. So, like, you know, that's been brilliant. I now have a wonderful woman in my life who I share the load with.
Yeah.
And if I didn't reach out to the mothers of Ireland and say, I suppose my mum has COVID at the moment, believe it or not. So she's in bed with COVID. But if I didn't reach out to all the Irish mothers who look after their boys, especially so well, no offense to the ladies listening, but without my mum, I wouldn't have got through that. And that's probably the best thing I can say about my mother, is that when I needed her, she stood up, helped me, and made sure that I could continue to look after my kids and still have a career.
Wow, it's extraordinary when you. I think it's called Wisdom, Sean. I know that.
I don't know if I have that yet.
I know. Somebody also called Wisdom all the mistakes that we've ever made. We just wrap it up into a ball and call it wisdom. But my first mentor, just a little anecdote, my first mentor, I was like yourself, 70 hours a day or week and all this type of stuff. And I remember Peter saying to me, he said, look, I don't know what the last thought you're ever going to have in your life. You know, who does? But I bet you it's not going to be one of these two things. I should have spent more time in the office, and I wonder how my shares are doing.
Exactly.
I don't know why, but sometimes stories come into your life at a time and you don't quite get it, but you realize, like, you could go and do a thesis on the quality of life, the value of life, and sometimes it's just a little anecdote, or sometimes it's just a moment, and that little moment that you've had there, like a lot of people listen to this show and they might be going through a bit of what you're going through, and you know, I guess you always think that you're the first, right?
Yeah, well, you do, and as a, and I don't know, I'd say as a man, or I suppose in a man, you know, going on holidays with 3 kids and everyone looking at you sitting in a hotel saying what's wrong with him, and the eyes all looking at you, because you never see a guy sitting in a hotel with 3 kids on a family holiday. So you might see a mom with 3 kids sitting on a family holiday, but you never saw that. But I suppose, you know, the interesting thing about all that is, you know, you get through life and you just realize that, you know, 15 years later that, you know, you learn so much from that experience, and you know, all the things that you were, you know, nervous about or worried about didn't really matter at all. It wasn't really important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're healthy, and you're playing a bit of golf now, and you're back. I guess if you have time for golf, you're getting a little bit of personal time as well. And the kids now probably are carrying your bag, I hope, are they?
Well, no. So my son is now 24, and I got that wrong. I said 22 when I was on our walk. I mentioned it to Morris, and he said, because their sons hung around together when they were bred. So he said, no, he said he's 24, and I had to think about it. But my daughter's just back from Tenerife, and she's 18, and my son was over in New York with his best friend and his mother and his aunt. And on Saturday morning, he was reported missing, because at 5 o'clock in the morning after a night out, he decided to go for a walk because he couldn't sleep. So he came home saying there was policemen around New York looking for him. But I said he likes getting up about 7 or 6 or 5 and going for a walk. So I said we didn't find out till he came back. So it was fine.
Yeah. It's often when you go through this process of young adults, late teens, you know, you just have to. You have to play the statistics, don't you? Sometimes.
Well, 100%. And you just, when you go away, don't worry, don't think about them. You just have to block. Just make sure, text me that everything is fine, and that's all you need to know. Don't ask any questions.
And make sure that the bank of dad is still stocked.
They'd be very good. In fairness, now I didn't have to fund either of the holidays, so they're both in college and they're both making their own way. And in fairness, you know. My son now would need a bit more money than my daughter, but my daughter would be very, very, very good with money, and she hates spending it. So,
Jesus, Sean, I see a book coming up. Rearing 3 Kids by Sean Kirby, ex-RWL owner, best-selling author, Kathy Kelly and Sean Kirby signing in your local.
I tell you, there's definitely a film in the story from start to finish. All right.
So what about an app? So. If you had 3 apps, apart from your own app, of course, parenting, Sean.
O'Donoghue's our RWL app. Which one are you talking about? The O'Donoghue's app?
Yeah, okay. So you've the RWL app, you've the O'Donoghue's app, and you've Parenting with Sean app. Those 3 are the most indispensable. What would be your 3? Get rid of the phone, bar 3. Which are they?
I suppose that when I actually looked at my phone and I said, you know, you could go onto Facebook, you could go onto Instagram, which I set up an account which I've never used. You could go onto LinkedIn. But I suppose I said, which ones would I want to use? And the first one that I always use would be BRS for golf. So I would always make sure that I have my tee times booked, and you know, I love my game of golf. As we point out, my kids, I don't have to be there the weekends because, you know, I come home and they might have dinner ready for me, but they're never here anymore. So doesn't make any difference. So I love the BRS golf, without a doubt, has to be there.
Okay,
The next one would have been Netflix. So I watch very little TV, but when I'm on a plane or I get a few hours where you have a bit of downtime. Where I find airports, you can't work in an airport, no matter how much people tell you I was working for 3 hours in an airport doing my emails. It just, the environment doesn't work for any of that type of stuff. So I pull out a bit of Narcos, a bit of that action, a bit of blood and gory, and I love all that type of stuff. Watch 3 or 4 episodes of all that. I'm watching the Mexican one at the moment, but I'd watch 10 episodes and then I wouldn't watch for another 4 or 5 months and then have to remember again. And then the next one would have been because I like going out a lot. I like walking, I like cycling, I like being out in the outdoors. It was the weather app, but I changed that at the last moment. And the reason I changed it is because I was going to say the photo app, but I was sick of going to the photo app and looking for that damn fucking Sarah. The F-bomb that you spoke about.
No, so we'll blank that one out. We'll beat that. We've a 5-second lag. The 5-second lag will cover that one.
So when you look at the photos there, you go through all your photos to find this COVID cert, and then I got the European COVID cert. You just go to your wallet and you press, there's my cert. So I replaced the weather app with the wallet in my phone. It's just that's me complete with my.
Well, either way, I like this. I like what you've talked about. You talked about recreation, downtime, and also about your health. Because I think when you blend all that in, as you said earlier, probably more important than a lot of the other stuff we've read over. Probably way more important. So it's been very short, it's been very sharp, but it's been very interesting.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I suppose I'll just finish by saying to you, and one of the things, Garry, is that I've been very lucky in my career. I'm 32 years in the structured cabling, fiber optic infrastructure market. But my father was a stamp collector and he loved it. And when I go to work every day, my kids will still tell you this day, I love going to work. So for all those years I've been in work, I've never gone to work not liking going to work. So it makes a huge, big difference to the quality of your life if you love what you do.
It absolutely does. And we're both at the age where our children are in college probably and going off into the journey. And there's never a day that I don't remind my older girl, genuinely navigate whatever you're doing and find the part that you love or like, and grab onto that 100%. So that no matter what, that could become, and particularly now with the whole new concept of the gig economy and the whole concept I read this morning, Sean, that you and I, maybe me more than you, I had purpose in my life when I was younger, but it was usually to have a few pints and go dancing with a few bob. It wasn't all this other purpose of a sense of person and a sense of giving back and a sense of the planet and stuff. But it's very important to try and find something, as you say, that you actually, sometimes this is way too much fun to be work. But yeah, no, I agree. I think I'm with you on that. And I also believe, and I know we've spoken about this off camera, is that it's about people too. You can be a bit give or take about a particular product or maybe a particular, but you might meet really interesting people, interesting people that are a different way of interpreting it or doing it. And that's why when we do a lot of what we do, always ask the question, why is he doing that, or why is she doing that, and why? And then the how is usually what you're selling.
Exactly, yeah. And every time you meet it, really, I find every couple of months you'll meet someone that you find, wow, I really enjoy that meeting, or they could really teach me something. And once you keep on listening to people and actually taking something from the conversation that you can actually then turn into something that makes you a better individual, or maybe a kinder individual. Like, I think that's just,
this could be the sequel. Sean, God's sake, stop giving away all these secrets. This could be the sequel to Parenting with Sean. This is living a longer. I could see a Netflix documentary about you, and you'd be like the Buddha of Bray. There'd be a statue up on the hill, and there'd be people coming to kiss your feet.
Well, all I'd say to you, if any of my mates see this, I'm in big trouble.
See you, Sean. Thank you so much. It's been a great show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gary. See you later. See you soon.
Fantastic.
Thanks.